We're hot American nights, shaking body dry on a coastline. We're hot American nights.
So we'll start off with the daily metrics.
Morning, everyone. We had 13 proposals sent out for a proposal value of $121,652. 2 jobs were approved, and the value of those were $44,267.
All right. Friday we worked 199 hours, and non-billable were 126.
Good morning, guys. Good morning. On Friday, we requested a total of $73,144.36. We received a total of $34,422.58, and we are currently owed $335,043.72.
Friday's nursery gross sales were $160.80.
Wah, 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 wah.
But I do have some really big ones coming.
That's good. That's good. Big numbers, right? Yeah. We're owed over $300,000 now, so that's interesting. For the ladies that weren't here this week, we're reading those metrics every morning at the daily meetings, so everybody has an idea of what's going on in the company. It's important. So yeah, interesting stuff. So we quoted over $100,000 on Friday. Went out in quotes. It's a lot of money, and we right. We were approved $40,000. So when you hear those approved numbers, it doesn't necessarily mean that those are the $100,000 in quotes that were approved. What could have been approved were quotes that were sent out a week earlier. So that's what that is. So I just want to say congratulations to Josh Baker. Got engaged over the weekend. Everyone wants to give him a round of applause. So good luck. Yeah, so I had an interesting weekend. I went to, me and Jake went to a leadership retreat out in Arizona. We do these things like every few months. It's part of this Cardone Ventures stuff, and there were some good takeaways. What they did was they had, and I sit there through the weekend, and I'm thinking of like, what can I take back, and what's important? What do they talk about, and what relates to us? So what they did is part of the retreat. Actually, is a good part of the retreat. A big part of it is they did role playing. So they would sit. They gave us. There were probably 100 people in the room, and they gave everybody had to pair up, and they gave us a sheet with 3 different scenarios of an employee and the leader, the manager, and what is this employee's issue, and how does the manager approach the employee and have a conversation about it. So you had to pick which scenario you were going to do. So my scenario was some guy named Nick, and he trying to remember what his deal was. He wanted a promotion, but he wasn't doing what he was supposed to do. Basically, he wasn't going to classes, and he wasn't doing the work that he needed to do. So the guy that I was role playing with, I was Nick, and he was a leader, so he had to talk to me about that. So we had to practice at the table, but then they had this randomizer wheel that they spun up on the stage, and they would pick somebody's name. And if your name got picked, you and your partner had to go up in front of 100 people and do it with microphones. Jake got picked. Yeah, Jake got lucky because Jake wasn't the leader. The leader on his role play, he didn't do so well. He was nervous up on the stage. Naturally, he was in front of 100 people. But what the point was from the first group that went up, they did it. Like, how many people did they have go up there? It had to be 15 groups. So from the first, the guy that I was teamed up with, we thought we had it down like that, no problem. And then the first group went up, and they tore them apart. Like there were two people that well actually what they did was they gave every table a whiteboard, and you had to score how that leader did, and you had to hold up a number from 1 to 6, 6 being the best, remarkable, and 1 being poor. And everybody would hold up like 2s. But this guy thought he did great up there, and then you had to go around the room and say, well, why didn't he do good? And then the 2 people running the event really critiqued him and said, you know, you didn't do good because of this, you weren't very clear. And so as each group went up, I was thinking, oh, I'm not going to do that on mine. Oh, now I got to make sure that when we do ours, we don't make that mistake. So by the time it got to the end, the idea was they'd get better, which they didn't really get better because you were close to the end. And Jake got all 1s. Everybody held up 1s for him.
It wasn't me, it was the leader.
It was a leader.
He
He was
was just the employee.
just the employee. But Jake comes off the stage. He goes, that was good. I got a 6. I'm like, you can get a 6? He goes, well, if you add up all the 1s, I got 6. So, that was funny. But what we got out of it and what some of the takeaways were, you know, you make mistakes and you learn from them, right? So these people were up there, and that's a whole idea of this role playing. They weren't just doing it to laugh at these people. This was for us to learn and for us to make mistakes, because you want to make these mistakes not in real life if you can do like a role play. I'm not telling you guys to go role play, but my point will come after this. But for us as managers, so that was just the example for that. So we would do that role play and make those mistakes. So then when I do have to have a conversation with somebody, it's more effective. Like I'm not going to have a conversation with. I'm going to use Josh because I don't know why I keep looking at you when I'm up here talking. But like when. You know, if I sat down with Josh now, maybe I wouldn't have the conversation the same way that I would have before this weekend, because I remember, because we practice different ways of communicating, and I know that won't be the most effective way to get through Josh by tearing him up for doing something wrong, which is really what this whole point is about. So we practice to get better, so we make mistakes. We make mistakes. And making mistakes is normal. Making mistakes is good, because when you make a mistake, you learn from it, right? So they call it failing forward. So when you fail, but you fail forward. So you get better from that failure. So that's kind of what the point is today. So if you make a mistake, it's okay. Just learn from it, right? So and we want to do that. That's how you grow. And it's not just making a mistake. It's not even. It's the fear of making the mistake is what holds everybody back. So maybe Jesse, I'll use Jesse as an example because I'm trying to think of a scenario. So Jesse might have, in this quite possibly is what happened, since Jesse started working here or working with hardscape, he didn't want to maybe pick up the cutoff saw and make cuts because he didn't want to make a mistake. He had the fear of screwing up a cut on a patio or making the wrong cut or doing something wrong. So he never did it. Right? So he had to pick up that saw and make some mistakes so he could overcome that fear. And now he's an artist, right? With a cutoff saw. I wouldn't say an artist, but he's getting there. He's getting there, right? But had he not done that and he stayed afraid to do that, he wouldn't have learned. So I mean, I think that happens with everything. And I'm sure, and I'm just assuming in Jim, you know, maybe he didn't want to get into tearing a dashboard apart on a vehicle because he didn't want to screw something up until he had to. And then once he did it, he knew how to do that, and he knew how to pull a dashboard out. He knew how to fix a gauge or something because it didn't. He overcame that, right? So that's kind of the point. Like, so if you're afraid of making a mistake, don't be. It's natural. It's going to happen. So, but don't be afraid, because the fear is what's going to keep you from getting farther on and going forward. So I've talked about this, and I don't know if I've talked about it in front of this room before, but I have talked about it with a lot of the managers, this comfort zone, growth zone, and danger zone thing. Have I ever brought that up with everybody here? No. So interesting story is, Christine, my wife, she graduated from Leslie College with her bachelor's degree in, I don't know how long ago that was, maybe 10 years ago. And I had to go to this graduation ceremony at the Bank Boston Pavilion and under this tent, and it was 100 degrees out that day, and I was so aggravated. I'm like, this is gonna be horrible. Everybody's sweating. It was an outdoor graduation, like I said, under the tent. And we get under there, and I'm just looking at my watch, how long is this gonna take? And this woman gets up to speak, and she was like the guest speaker for the graduation that they brought in. She was a professor, past professor or something. And she said, I apologize for this, but I'm gonna be long up here. And I got a long speech to say. And first thing I was thinking is, oh no, this is not happening. But I remember this speech that this woman made. Like, she has no idea. I don't even know her name, but I've talked about this so many times, and I remember this so many years later because of something that she said. But she talked about the how to learn, how you learn in life, and she said life's like 3 circles, right? So the middle circle is your comfort zone. And that's when you do everything that's easy for you. You do, and you know you're going to cruise through it, and you know that it's the easiest thing for you. And if you keep doing that, you keep doing that. And that's where you stay, in that comfort zone. That's just maintaining, right? The next circle is your growth zone. This is difficult. This is difficult. This is the stuff that you're afraid to do a little bit, or you're intimidated by, and you know it's going to be hard. You may make mistakes, but you have to do it. It's not easy. Might be learning how to do masonry if you never did masonry before. Might be working on a project that we've never worked on before that you're intimidated by, right? And then the next circle is your danger zone. So this is a zone that can get you in trouble. That's a zone you don't want to be in. That's a zone that you can get hurt by, or nothing good will come of that zone. It's scary. Stay out of that. It's danger zone. So what happens is, if you stay in that comfort zone, you're always going to be in that zone, and your circle's always going to look the same. But if you go into the growth zone and you learn how to do some stuff, and you take on things that are challenging, those collapse into your circle, and those become your comfort zone, right? And then the things that were in your danger zone before are now in your growth zone. And you just keep growing that way, and you keep doing things that way in life, and that's how you grow. So I use, and it's really true. Like, I use an example 20 years ago. I was, when we opened up the garden center up in Manomet, we had a lot of customers from Pine Hills was just being built, and we had customers from Great Island at the Pine Hills coming into the nursery all the time. And at the time, I probably only had like 4 guys working for me, landscaping. And somebody from the Landscaping Association approached me about doing the whole communities, maintaining all their beds. I was like, holy cow, this is a huge contract. I can't do that. That was in borderline danger zone for me. And they asked for a price. So I just went in there, measured up every bed, thought I was given the right price, gave them a quote, and I got the job. And a part of me didn't want the job because I didn't know how I was going to handle it, right? And so we got it. And then the nervous part of me was, did I charge enough? Like, why did I get it so easily? I probably didn't charge enough. That wasn't the case. But we got in there the first year, we killed it. Like, my guys absolutely did an unbelievable job. We got all kinds of compliments. Like, it never looked this great. It was a challenge, though, because I was working with the men every day until 6 o'clock at night, and then it got easier, and then it was a piece of cake, right? And now, when I look back at that, that was almost my danger zone then. That right now, if I got that contract, that would be the little tiniest bit of my comfort zone. It would be nothing, right? So that's how that works, and that's how that. And going back to Jesse, like when Jesse first started doing hardscape for the first time, I'm sure the stuff that you're doing now, running a machine or being in a machine or having a hoisting license, like all that stuff, that would have been danger zone stuff. So just keep going, keep doing that, improving yourself, and you're only going to get farther in life by doing that. And that's you know, and you're going to fail, and that's okay too. I'm just looking at my phone because I had made some notes about this. You know, people fail. Walt Disney failed. Walt Disney, I remember hearing something about, you know, he was told so many times that a theme park would never work and it was never going to happen, and he wouldn't do well. Well, look at Disney's like one of the biggest brands in the world right now. Who else failed? Steve Jobs failed. Steve Jobs created Apple. I think he got fired from Apple after he built it, and then he went back into the company as the CEO and blew it up. Look, I just had in my hand, right? Apple. But you know, there's all kinds of stories about that. So just try to do better. Know that if you make a mistake, it's all right. And we're not going to get upset if it's a learning experience from that. So that's okay. So anyways, with that, who has something that they've made a mistake on and learned from? Anybody? I'm going to give you this, Dallas, if I can get it to turn on. I got it. There's a value to these answers, just so everybody knows.
Well, I wasn't working for this company, but I worked for CMS, and it was like my first year, and I was pruning, but I wasn't watching because I thought I was so experienced at pruning. I actually pruned myself.
Oh, you did?
And it hurt.
Yeah.
And I actually lost like quite a bit of my skin off my thumb.
Yeah. Won't do that again.
No, I won't do that again. But yeah, so that was like my big mistake.
That's a good example.
I hear you.
That's a good example. Anybody else? Something that they've learned, something that they were afraid to do or intimidated to do, and they didn't do it.
Yeah, I got one. I was using a chainsaw, which is easy for me, and I got a little crazy with it, and I cut this way right across my hand. So now
Okay.
I go, okay, I'm going to slow down a little bit, and not go crazy with it because I'm comfortable with it.
Right.
But I got too comfortable.
Yep.
And therefore I hurt myself. So
There you go. So that was two safety mistakes.
I cut across like this, like an idiot.
Right.
I shouldn't have, go.
Yep.
Cut my hand.
Anything anybody's not made a mistake, like a safety mistake, but anything that somebody was afraid to do or started doing, anything somebody started doing within the company that now they're doing something different that they didn't do before because it was something that they didn't know how to do.
Before I came back into the landscaping world when I was teaching, I had a lot of fear that I wasn't going to be physically capable to handle all this anymore. And it held me back because I thought that I didn't know what I was going to do after I left teaching. I was like floundering, wondering what was next, and I had to get out of my comfort zone, and a year later, things are looking pretty darn good, I got a whole big family of people I work with every day that I really enjoy and that support me in a lot of different ways, a smile and a handshake in the morning and, a thank you goes miles. So if I wouldn't have got out of my comfort zone, I wouldn't have ended up here.
Yep. I'm looking around. I know guys have made mistakes, and we've let them go for it, and they're back. They're back because, for whatever reason, but they're back, and they're improving themselves. So, yeah, there's an example there. Anyone else? Nothing?
So tying down machines, the first time I was in charge to do that, Baker showed me how to do it. Next week, he went off, told me to do it. I tied it down the wrong way. I put the binders on the passenger side, which was supposed to be on the driver's side. Positioning the weight on the trailer, I had it too far back, and I was going on the highway and I was swaying side to side. I had no idea what to do. Told Baker. Baker walked me through it while I was on the highway and got the machine safely to the job. And then from there on out, that was my learning experience, knowing how to position the machine on the trailer, putting the binders on the driver's side, and the tie-down points on the machines.
Right. Thanks. There you go. Failing forward. That's what they did. So, yeah, so that was a point of that. And again, it's not so much making the mistake too, it's learning from it. Or not making a mistake, and like I talked about, just learning, just practicing something and learning something. Everybody that's been here for a long time, that I'm looking out here at, did not start doing what they're doing right now, right? Josh started working. I'm like, tell me, here, take this for a second. When did you start with me for the first time working for us?
I started in 2012, I believe.
And where were you working?
I was trying to get my GED, which I ended up getting actually.
Right.
So I had to. I was kind of part time.
Yep.
And then I started as a laborer, like
You were working
newest guy. I had
You
really
were working
no
in the garden
experience.
center, I think. Did you work in the garden center for a short time?
A little bit,
Yeah.
but like I said, yeah. it
Not
was,
long. I think it was a few days. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then, I started as a laborer. I really didn't know much. I didn't really have much background in landscaping. And then the next year I became a mow foreman because I wanted it.
Right.
You know. And then same thing with hardscape.
Yeah.
I wanted it. Then I went in to be the mechanic.
Right.
And then I went back to hardscape.
Yeah.
Now I'm just kind of doing everything.
Right.
You know.
So you got your hoisting license.
Yep. Got that.
Right. So he learned if I turn this off. If I told Josh the first day he started he's going to jump in the machine, he's going to take a truck and trailer and go to a job and install a patio, that couldn't have happened. That would have been his danger zone probably then, right? But getting in a truck and pulling a trailer is what? That's the tiniest part of your comfort zone now. So that's the point, right? So just improve yourself. Everybody that's here, that's what you're doing every day. So keeps going from there. So anyway, who gets $100? I'm giving it to Josh because he's got to pay for that ring. Yeah. So that's that. Anybody have anything to add to that? Nope. All right. Chanel, you want to come up and talk about this fine specimen up here? We have a fine specimen coming up to talk about a fine specimen.
Thanks.
Yeah. Hold on.
You gotta have a token redhead.
Token redhead. What the hell? There you go.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks, Jake. Good morning, everybody. All right. So, does anyone here recognize this fine specimen right here? Excluding this redhead, what about this one? You're on the right page. You absolutely are. So do you know the family of that plant? He said Arctic fire. No? I know you know it, so. So you have one of the plants correct, that this is in one of the common names of one of them. So this is a red twig dogwood. You've probably heard of that. You might have been assuming it could have been. Its Latin is Cornus sericea, it's one of those Latin names that I'm not familiar with pronouncing the right way, but it is different than your dogwood trees, like your Cornus cusa or Cornus florida. The obvious reason being that it is a shrub form plant. Why I brought it up is the obvious, this beautiful winter or fall interest here. You probably have seen a few different varieties. One of the more common ones that you see is the greenleaf form. It's got a couple of different names, red osier, but those types generally are going to grow 6 or 8 feet. Okay, they're pretty large in size. They have come out with a few more unique ones since then. One of the most popular being ivory halo. That is the one that has that variegated leaf, the two-tone, creamy kind of white to green margin going through it. Things to know about this. For the most part, it's just like your other dogwoods where it's going to benefit from being more in a morning sun, avoiding too much direct all-day sun, okay? It can tolerate a lot of it, but the issue being if it's too south facing, you're gonna start to see burnt edges, okay? What you need to know as well, it can kind of have sucker growth. I don't know if you can see this branch here. It dips down, it kind of goes like that. In the landscape, if you have ever been cleaning up leaves around it or anything, or putting down mulch, you've probably come into pieces that have actually rooted from there, and then they start splintering off a bit, okay? They're gonna grow 3 by 4 in the best shaping, if you can kind of prune at it. What you need to know is as it gets age and these stems get thicker, it starts to lose that really red, vibrant color. So by doing selective old cane pruning, where every 3 to 4 years you go through and you remove some bigger chunks, you'll get a lot more of this growth that'll keep it tender at the bottom and that predominant red fall color, winter color. Obviously, if you can picture this against snow, it's gonna really pop. It's gonna give your customer a big wow factor in the yard. Partial sun is best. Also, you can use this as a secondary interest throughout your yard as well. In the Pine Hills, I'm assuming you probably use the stems for decorative interest through containers and along the bridge. There are other forms of this that are not just the red stem one. There is also an orangey yellow variety of this as well. So you can get red stem, or you can get this bold yellow gold color as well from this plant. So there's quite a bit of interest in this that's not just the tree form. There is a shrub form, there's ground cover. The dogwood family is actually huge. So this doesn't get the little red kind of ball like the tree does. It's more just the green leaf with the variegated leaf being the more predominant or popular one, but it's really about the stems for interest here. So red stem, red twig, whatever you might want to call it, red osier, but this is a dogwood, and I just wanted to bring this one up. Thanks, guys.
So yeah, so in closing, that's what I talked about. Learn from your mistakes. That's a dogwood. Anybody have anything to say, Mike?
Real quick, Dave wanted me to remind everybody to grab your pumpkins tonight, bring them home, have them carved either for tomorrow morning, but the latest Thursday morning, so we can take pictures and get them out on the bridge.
Oh yeah.
The third bay over here.
Yeah, guys, too, with the pumpkins, it doesn't go unnoticed on the people that do carve the pumpkin. I know it's kind of a silly thing, but it's a fun thing that we do, and we appreciate when you all take one home and carve it. So even if you don't spend a lot of time on it, try to grab a pumpkin and take the time to carve it. It's fun. I mean, we put them on the bridge like we had talked about. Everybody enjoys seeing them. We get a lot of compliments from them, and they'll be a good prize for the winner. And sometimes the winner isn't the most beautiful pumpkin either. It's funny how that happens. But I think usually what we do is we put them on Facebook. What we did before was we put them on Facebook. We're going to do a little different this year, and you can kind of see the trends under the pictures on who liked, because you got to put in the past you'd like the pumpkin, like you check the like button under the pumpkin that you liked. And the trend was typically whoever's pumpkin it was, their whole family was liking it and their cousins. So whoever had the biggest family was winning, was in the running for the pumpkin contest. But all right, so I guess that's it. And have a good day. Thanks.
Man on the porch singing baritone. Tan line leads to that gentle place between a collarbone and a stone cold face.